fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gotta be biblical.
Hello there, welcome to Patriots Across The Pond and Friends, episode 18 with Stewie from Stewie's News and Elisa V. Today we have an amazing guest on and a legend in the truthy movement, and I'll just read a little bit about you. Investigative journalist, producer, documentary filmmaker, actress and well-known broadcaster, Kerry has travelled the world interviewing whistleblowers from above top secret with a global audience focused on consciousness and alternative perspectives. In 2005, Kerry picked up a consumer-grade camcorder and began interviewing people on the subjects of UFOs, the paranormal, and the secret space program. Since its inception, Project Camelot has become a leader in the area of whistleblower testimony by providing filmed interviews broadcast on YouTube and Rumble and shot guerrilla style on location with key witnesses and researchers from around the world. Today's show, we're going to be discussing the current state of play, the secret space program, alien agendas and updates, MAGA, the White Hats, and the war for Earth sovereignty. Kerry, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. There's a lot going on in the world, so it's really exciting times to be alive.
Yeah, very exciting is one word for it.
Yes, definitely.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. Anyway, just saying, we just heard about a terrible murder in Hollywood today, and that's very sad news. So I don't know anything about it, so I've no intel on that. But it's a tragedy nonetheless.
It is. Yeah, Trump's just put out a big tweet about it, talking about TDS and all sorts of these sorts of things with Rob Reiner and stuff. And it looks like the news is his son, I think, that stabbed them both to death. So that's a developing story. But yeah, Elisa, you okay?
Yeah, doing great. Happy Monday to everyone today. Kerry, it's so great to have you here. I saw you in October in New York, and as always, whenever you start speaking, people are pretty mesmerized. So we're gonna actually, why don't we start wherever you want to start? Kind of look at where we are overall and some of the important intel and information that you've got at this time.
Well, I mean, I could go anywhere. I just wrote an article about something that Juan said in, interview he did a day or two ago, which has to do with paper voting, paper ballots, and how people are going to have to register for voting and all this kind of thing. And I actually am skeptical of their plan. So I just put that into an article for those that are interested. I write articles on Substack, and I've been doing that for, I think it might be over a year now, maybe even 2 years. And I also, the articles do end up on my site at some point, but mainly my site has videos, so I've been writing articles a long time, but there was a time 1 or 2 years ago when I couldn't even get on my own site because we were being so much under attack. So I just kind of out of desperation, just looked for something that I could post to and found Substack. And I think it's very good. it's very easy to use and allows me to speak my mind. And so it became kind of its own thing, but it's, I have lots and lots of places that I post, all social media, of course, but my Telegram is extremely active. I post
Yeah.
there every day. So if you want to know what's going on with me or with what things that I think are worth noting, not necessarily that I agree with them, but just worth noting.
Yeah.
To help understand our world, what's going on with all of us. And this whole thing is crazy. And so, I don't know what topic to really hit on for your audience. Maybe you know your audience better than I. So if you want to
Sure.
ask me any direct questions or give me a topic, and then I can run with it.
Well, you know what I'm really interested in, and Stu, you could chime in anytime you want to. But what I'm interested in is the last time we were together, which was October, you were talking a lot about, kind of the alien agenda and where we are and what's kind of going on with a lot of that. And so here we are, a couple of months later. I'd love maybe for the audience to get a little bit of an update on kind of what's happening. I know as a subscriber to you, your most recent email had, indicated a bunch of things that were going on, both as it related to Israel, as well as how it relates to, trying to just had a blank on the Vatican and the different factions,
Sure.
if you will. So I'd love if you could give a little bit of an overview and,
Well, we're actually a few days away from when 3i Atlas is going to be at its closest distance to the Earth, and that's the 19th. And the information out there is very convoluted. I did my own viewing of it, and Sebastian Martin is another. He's a CIA, occasionally works for the CIA as a remote viewer himself, and we ended up with the same information. There's other people out there coming up with wildly different information and interpretations. And I also, there's a remote viewer on Courtney Brown's Farsight Institute. They're expert remote viewers, and they do have a track record. So you can track whether or not they're good. And he's an excellent, it's actually his son, Aziz, who remote viewed 3i Atlas recently. And I posted that quite a few places. And it's very good. I'm not in love with the graphics. They're a little childish and whatever you might say, but maybe some people like it, or it relieves the tension, or I don't know, whatever. But from my point of view, he also matched, not exactly, but very close enough to what Sebastian and I are both seeing, which is the reptilian influence, the Anunnaki. It's basically connected to the Anunnaki race. Now, that's the race of beings that are in the Sumerian tablets. They're carved into the walls, the temple walls of Iraq, Iran, and Egypt. I lead tours in Egypt every year if I can manage it. And we have a tour that's happening it's the end of April, actually. So if anyone's interested, it's on the front page of my website, projectcamelotportal.com. So you just click on the banner. So what I would say about it is that we're really looking at, a negative or semi-negative approach to our planet and to our solar system. I did about 4 shows, I think it was, with an astronomer who's quite well known, David Sereda, and he's working with another astronomer, Richard Hoagland, who is a former NASA scientist. And the two of them have been tracking 3i Atlas. And I've been reporting on that also. But in my show with David, he tracked it in its whole trajectory, which was all pre-designed, and found that all of the places that it was connecting to related to our older religious, semi-religious history, in terms of the places that it was coordinates connected to. So what that gave was a story of what they were trying to convey. So they didn't even have to be in communication. although I believe that, Solar Warden was in communication even from before July 1st, when they announced that it was in our solar system. I believe it was being tracked prior to that. So it's very interesting. Most people, there's another scientist that was associated with the Galileo project, Avi Loeb, who is Israeli. Question that, because there's a connection between Israel and the Anunnaki. And I've talked about this for many years. And, so you can come to your own conclusions. I have people out there who think, oh, there's going to be an ascension. They're going to help us ascend and all this kind of stuff. But I think that's completely insane. But, you have to get what you get, and you rely on your own intuition. You have to add up, if you do research, what you come across out there, match it all together, connect the dots, see how it works for you. But for me, I've gotten many, many verifications of what I had gotten initially. And so I actually said that when David and I were just beginning to track, and he was tracking the actual coordinates, because I know nothing about math. And he's like a master mathematician. So that was fascinating that we kind of coordinated, came together at the same places, and we're getting the same information from completely different disciplines, And so I have been trained as a remote viewer. I've had remote viewings and I have been correct, but I'm not public about it. Those are more personal stuff that I've done to learn the craft and study it. But I'm more of a psychic intuitive. That's really my strength. And that has actually supported me in my work in Camelot. So it's turned out to be very correct. When I have a hit on something, even when in the beginning it might look like it's going to happen like that, it ends up that way. I'm always amazed myself. So, yeah, I mean, it's now I don't know what they plan to do with it, but did either of you happen to see the Courtney Brown Aziz remote viewing?
I did not see that.
Okay, well, everything's on my Telegram.
Okay.
So you can see it there. You're going to have to go back a few days, but it'll be on there. And I can also send you the link after the show so you can put it up under the show, because that'd be really good for people to see. He gets very graphic about it. He literally sees grays and reptilians on the ship. He sees that it's going to be attacked. Now, this is the thing to look out for in the next few days, or however it's going to play out. I don't know. But I saw it attacked. This is months and months ago, and I actually did report that. Because I do get downloads I don't expect to get, and I did see it being attacked. And it's been attacked already. Let me say this, and we don't know whether it's our secret space program or it's the ETs, or a combination of both, the good ETs, as we call them. So what happened was it was hit directly when it was in a certain part of space. And I think it might have been over by Jupiter at the time, not sure where it was. And it was hit directly by a CME. You might have seen that in the news. That was reported by, mainstream scientists as well. So they never could explain it. Normally, if a CME hits a craft like that, or a planet, it can throw it out of whack totally, okay, and if not destroy it. In this case, what it did was according to the scientists even, it seemed to take in the solar flare, the flow of those particles, or whatever you call them, and in a sense, the way I see it is it swallowed them. It actually was not disturbed by it at all. And in fact, that is substantiated by other information that we have back in the years, saying that craft actually have been photographed next to the sun, getting fuel, in essence, from the sun. And John Leonard Walson is somebody who I know well. And I've met with him in person. I've sat next to him while he's worked his telescopes. He's really an amazing guy. He has the best absolute best sort of photographs of Three Eye Atlas. I've been publishing all this stuff again. It's been on my Telegram. I have tons of pictures. I could probably drum up a few now if you want me to do that sort of thing.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, because understanding that NASA has, there's been a cloak of secrecy, complete cloak of secrecy. So not only did it go supposedly sort of behind the sun, but we actually have observing, I don't know if you want to call them satellites or telescopes that are able to see behind the sun anyway, but they don't report that. I just know that because of my familiarity with the secret space program. But what happened, it was photographed, and it has these jets all of a sudden that appeared sometime around the time when it was crossing behind the sun. 7 of them perfectly, symmetrically placed, that were being emitted from it. So it was, and I don't know whether they consider it to be gas or what they consider water or whatever it is. And so there's a big story that the mainstream has not been telling you. I happen to be part of the Richard C. Hoagland news group, which is a lot of scientists, including David Sereda, and they have been reporting what they have. And this is another interesting thing. They've silenced Richard. So he normally does a show every weekend. He hasn't been able to do a show at all since this craft was announced, which is July. They cut off his power. They cut off his internet. They cut off everything. He tried to sue the city. He brought in techies. He's done everything under the sun, and he cannot broadcast. So they're silencing him in the public arena. However, on the news group, to some degree, he is kind of, saying things and showing some pictures and this and that. So he's not completely silent, but he's definitely been told to shut up. I have a top whistleblower who has been silenced. I have been found out recently. He went silent around July. And then just recently, I even talked to his wife. She wouldn't tell me anything. And I thought he might've died. I just was very concerned because I've never not heard back from him. And he completely disappeared off the radar. And then other people who know him also found that. So he's MIA, missing in action, as we say. And I found out that he was taken into hiding. I think it was under orders. I don't think he wanted to go into hiding. I kind of know his personality. And so I think that that's really what's going on, because he's somebody who you could even say he's an expert on the ET visitation on Earth. So of course they didn't want anything out there from him. There's all kinds of evidence of the secrecy. It's just been really rampant. And even Avi Loeb, who is, a totally mainstream scientist, says there's a secrecy block. So if it was friendly, let's say, just hypothetically, there probably would be no need for secrecy. Although knowing the secret space program, God knows they'd still probably want to be secret. But the fact of the matter is that what we're looking at is some kind of really a battleship is the way I see it. It is a craft. There's no two ways about it. If you see Aziz, who has an incredible track record of accuracy, if you see what he talks about in quite a lot of detail, it's unequivocal. They are going to be attacked by our secret space program, and by what appears to be a group of sort of Pleiadian or Nordic ETs. He's graphic about it again, showing visuals of what he sees. He draws it, and then I guess they got somebody who does graphics to sort of do a whole graphic rendition of it, which is, useful, I guess, for people. So anyway, so I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but that's.
I'm sorry.
Hang on, Kerry, I didn't want to interrupt while you were talking. I'm on your Telegram here. I've got some pictures.
Okay. That's John Walson. close-up
Yeah.
of Three Eye Atlas at a time when no one else could get pictures at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's, I think, I'm not sure who did that. It might've been Walson again. Let me see if I can I've got a few that I did put on my Telegram very recently. Supposedly the most recent ones out there are on the most recent Telegram posts, which was just a few days ago. And one of them shows it having what looks like kind of a star imagery of some kind. It's very weird.
Let me just whiz through, see if we can find anything. But
I have a question though, Kerry. Forgive my ignorance on all of this, because clearly, you are part of the team that understands this. But if there's been remote viewing that there's negatives, let's say, in this Three Eye Atlas, wouldn't they know that if you've also seen that it's going to be attacked, right? Like, wouldn't they have a sense? Like, what are they doing there? I guess is my point. If they can't be that dumb, to not know, like, the powers of whether it be some of the positive ETs in conjunction with the secret space program. Like, what are they doing there? What do they want to do, and why are they there? And why are they just waiting, almost like sitting duck?
Well, first of all, if a CME couldn't destroy it, then it's unlikely that any of our weaponry is going to be able to do shit. Let me just say that.
Okay.
Graphically. However, that's not what Aziz saw. He actually saw the ship being sort of pummeled, I guess you will, if you will, by smaller ships. So you've got many ships bombarding it. And apparently that caused some kind of break in the seam. That's how it looks on his graphic video, And I could, if you want me to take the time, even pull up the video and show you, literally, but you can watch it later also. Yeah. So what we're talking about is that is what a remote viewer saw. Now, whether he's going to be exactly correct or just partially correct, we just don't know. Right. As far as what they're doing here, let me just say this. I think that recently, I forget who said it, but it was a source saying that there's like 70 ships right now, like Three Eye Atlas out there. They're just not telling you about it. They're not maybe as trackable. This one is really obvious. Okay. So, and I thought that was very significant from the beginning, that it would have a trajectory that you could literally track, like on a railroad track, and it was going to go from point A to point B, C, D, and just, on this line that David Sereda again was tracking, and other scientists also did the same thing. And, in essence, that's exactly, it's a sitting duck, but it obviously, okay, one of the things that was very remarkable about it, and I don't know if it's still showing up like that. Actually, can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, you shoot screen.
Okay, let's see if this will work. So if I go share my screen.
Has it got audio?
Do I have audio? I don't need audio. These are just still photos.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, it's just, I just want to share so you can see what I'm talking about. So these are the most recent images that were coming out. This is a Richard Hoagland presented imagery. So these three sort of, and this is kind of your close up, and it's always had sort of a, they said it was, I don't know if you want to say trapezoidal or, it has some kind of a graphic shape to it. Now, hold on one second. I'm going to switch here. Now let me do this one first. So this is the most supposedly recent close-up of just Three Eye Atlas. Okay. Whereas the other ones are showing you more the outside. So as you can see, it has kind of a star-like diagram to it. Okay. And what they've done in these cases is this thing called stacking. I don't know if you know about it, but it means they don't just take one image. They take multiple images very close together, and then they stack them And then you can see more than if you just got one shot, like, like you take one picture. And it's a really interesting idea, the way they do that. So, yeah, this is the close-up, the most recent close-up. And this is sort of showing you, I guess, the construction or the image around it. Now, I don't know if you have picked up some of my other photos that I have, but in the early days, what you could see very graphically, actually, what they were calling a coma, Richard Hoagland and the other scientists could see, as well as David Sereda, that it actually was not like gas. It was actually had structure to it, so that I actually called it a Dyson sphere, but nobody picked up on that. So I'm not an astronomer. I'm not an expert. I'm not trying to say I'm right. So, but it is some kind of structure surrounding it. You can see it best in this picture. Can you still see that on your screen? I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
So the one on the far right, you can see it's not gas, actually. What they are finding, that is an actual kind of a lattice structure of some kind. I'm not sure what has geometrics to it. It's protecting the actual craft, which is hidden in the center. Okay. So the craft is not that big. It's smaller. It's, again, got this hole, and they call it a coma. It's not a coma, actually. It's not, it's not a typical comet by any stretch of anyone's imagination. And in fact, I think it's pretending at times to be comet-like, to help its camouflage, to confuse, the Earth scientists that they know are so dumb that they, won't even go into the ET area, right, in their analysis. So, but what we're looking at is this incredible production. So the reason I'm bringing that up is simply because that is going to be an obstacle, I believe, to any crafts that do try to demolish it. Now, I have a special secret space witness called Captain Mark Richards, who I just released 2 books of his testimony on Amazon, and they're doing very well over there. And I had already done videos. So I have video. I went and interviewed him in prison in person, and I did it for a period of 5 years, and I have 12 interviews. So approximately works out to be about 1 every 6 months. At that time, he was married. He's divorced now, but the woman he was married to, Joanne Richards, I have to credit her because she was the one who facilitated me coming into the prison. And we would sit there for 2 or 3 hours, and I would just pepper him with questions nonstop. I wasn't allowed to have a recording device. And so what happens is I basically just remembered everything. And I've been doing this for 20 years with whistleblowers. So, and I started out as a journalist, even in college, and writing, also worked in Hollywood for 20 years before I got into this line of work. And so I already had this kind of memory that I really latch on to stories and details. And so I guess for some reason, this is my specialty area, which is the secret space program and whistleblowers. So I have to have a good, ability to remember details that people say. So I'm very careful about that sort of thing. But at any rate, I'm still in touch with Captain Mark Richards, by the way. And I sent him the books, and I'm hoping he's going to tell me if there's any corrections, anything I got wrong. But it's very difficult with the way the prison is, because he's highly surveilled. And even though he has like an iPad. It's a prison iPad they give to prisoners now that they can actually communicate with family over, just by typing. I mean, I don't see his face or anything like that. It's not video. But he, I can ask him questions, but he can't answer me directly or truthfully unless, that's why I had to go and see him in person, because then he will be truthful. But right now I'm trying to get information from him about 3i Atlas, because he's really an amazing person, just unbelievably brilliant. And he is a captain of a Starship Enterprise type vehicle back in his younger years, before he got actually framed for a murder he didn't commit, but some young boys committed it blamed him as the mastermind. They were put in prison, or at least one of them was put in prison. One of them appeared to be a CIA agent. The other one has disappeared completely. So anyway, he got convicted on false charges, and he has been in prison for like 38 years of his life. It's just insane. He is an enemy of the secret space, of what we call the Luciferian agenda, the reptilian, gray, Draco agenda, which is very negative, and also has to do with the deep state and the dark cabal and all of that. I mean, I'm assuming your audience has this kind of knowledge in some rudimentary level, because otherwise I'm going to sound like I'm speaking Greek. But so this is what we're looking at. We're looking at, of course, is it friend or foe? And Solar Warden, for those of you who haven't heard those words or know about this, is a space fleet. I believe it's run mainly by our secret space program. Some reports will say, oh, it's actually ET. It might be a combination of both. Randy Kramer is a secret space military guy, a Marine who was sent on missions, and is actually has spoken on stage about his experiences. He actually still is in the Marines, and his commanding officer stands right there and monitors what he says, and so on and so forth. So we have that kind of testimony, which is a little bit more than just saying, oh, I'm 25 years and back. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying there's a real world connection that is a little more dependable. Not to say that these other people are not having real experiences. We just don't know. It's very hard to prove that in our current climate. So anyway, that's what's happening. When you say, why are they here? Aliens, I mean, Courtney Brown has run a group of remote viewers. There are 5 or 6 of them. He has a show that he does, and he's been doing for years now. They remote view all sorts of things. You can remote view the future, the past, even the present. And you're not always going to be accurate, but you will be able to have like hit or miss, especially if you view the past. You might get an easier way of tracking your hits, as we say, and so on. So there are, okay, if you put on these green, I forget they're certain kind of binoculars, you can see into that spectrum, and you can see UFOs over this in the sky every fucking night. So this is, they're here. Okay. They have been here. They've been watching us. They land here. They crash retrievals have been going on. I've interviewed for the past 20 years people about crash retrievals. I mean, the Congress acts like this thing just started yesterday, which is bullshit. And if you saw Age of Disclosure, at least they admit there's 80 years of secrecy. So that's what I work against. I work on, exposing the secrets, and putting them out there. That's my job. So that's all I can tell you. So why are they here? They're here because they're interacting with Earth. There are many other cultures, if you want to call them, that come to visit us who are actually friendly. And they are at war with the negative aliens. They're even at war in our skies. I knew a DEA agent who had set up a camera on his deck, and he had it in a fairly expensive house in, I think it was somewhere near the coast at the time, in an upscale neighborhood, Malibu, wherever it was, and just let it run all night long, because he knew the battles were happening in the LA area between the good guys and the bad guys. And sure enough, he got the footage. Then one day they literally firebombed, a particle beam weapon destroyed his house. Thank God he wasn't in it at the time, but it destroyed it to rubble. And all the houses around it were untouched, but they were basically trying to destroy his evidence and everything. Then I met with him in person. So I actually, vetted him. He was reporting his information for a few years on something called iPod.org. If you ever heard of that it's a long time ago website. You can go into, what do they call that thing? The reverse, whatever, and the internet thing, and find it. It's called iPod, like your eyes, iPod.org. Anyway, so he didn't stop. He continued. He moved to Hollywood. He got married. He had a child. First, they rear-ended him, and then they killed him. And I met with him, and he was brilliant. He knew everything like that I know and that was going on and is going on. And he continued to photograph the battles right over, and that was actually in the city of Hollywood, in the night skies. I guess he was kind of addicted to doing that. So.
And what year was that, Kerry?
Oh, this is years ago. This would probably be at least 10 years ago, maybe more.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because, for a lot of people that have been awake sort of 2 decades, like yourself and some of us others, we've been hearing about some sort of Anunnaki return for a long, long time. So this is absolutely fascinating that this is going on now. And obviously there's space wars going on and all this sorts of stuff, but how much control of it? We hear about full control, nothing can stop what is coming, but how much control do you think the White Hats have, and what sort of stage we are in this battle?
Well, on my Substack, I've been writing articles about that subject now for 2 years or more.
I've watched a lot of your interviews
and doing shows all about that question. Because there's what turned out to be the white hat military are just as secretive as the dark side cabal. Yeah. And they use the same tactics is what has happened. So you can kind of guess their moves now, because again, since both sides are doing these dark moves, it becomes more predictable. But the bottom line is that, we are being lied to by both sides now. So it's just that I've been on this story, and I'm, an investigative journalist, studied journalism in college, and I just, don't let go, so to speak. I follow this, literally day by day. Sometimes, into 3 a.m, I'll be posting on my Telegram comments and commentary about other people's stuff they're putting out, trying to correct the record. I'm sad to say that there are some great people that used to have great information who have now been, let's say, taken over or corralled or controlled, and they're out there on the circuit even right now, and I can detect when they're lying and how they're obfuscating and trying to sort of change the narrative, let's say, to please their masters, because they were approached. I stayed independent, okay, and I don't know exactly how and why that happened. I maybe have special protection, don't know. They did try to kill me. I've had, documented efforts to kill me, certain things, or just maybe scare me to death or something of that nature. It didn't work. But, so this is what we've got going on. I call it a war of worlds. And I also have had some excellent testimony. I've learned from the best, I would say. So Ashiana Dean is a person who has written 2 books, Voyager books. They're on the front page of my website. If you scroll down, you'll see them. They're now what you call just, ebooks, PDFs, like $20 each or something. And that contains the real history of humanity with all the different alien races, how they came here, how they've, changed our genome through the years. It's just a massive story. And all I can tell you, it's better and more true than the Bible. And, some people may not like that, but it's a fact. And, the Vatican is run by the reptilians, and that's really obvious in the architecture, in everything. So that's documented too. What can I tell you? This is the story. This is what I deal with every day. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Well,
I know Sorry, no, it's I'm not much of a reader personally, but I've watched you in a lot of your interviews over the last couple of years and stuff, and it is fascinating stuff. Elisa?
Oh, I was going to ask, obviously what you say is 100% obvious. When you look at the Vatican, we'll just take that for an example, right? Look at the Vatican, look at the symbols, you look at all that. But what truth is there to the fact that, when Trump went over there on his capitulation tour and he was dealing with the Pope, and, they then, what we've been told, right? I mean, we don't know if it's true or not, but what we've been told is that they confiscated the gold and took that out of the Vatican.
Right.
To your knowledge, is that true? And if it is, and obviously the tunnel that goes all the way down to Israel, right? So there's that connection. But if you think that's true, first question. And secondly, if it is, do they still retain control after that move, that military move?
No, not at all. I mean, we don't even know if the current pope is actually the real pope. He could even easily be a clone at this point, but absolutely. And I think even Juan will say that they did go into the Vatican and get all of the money, basically, the gold. And Charlie Ward orchestrated that for them, by the way, in case you don't know that. So, he's a guy, you can ask him. I mean, what do you want to, if he's, he's not lying. So the White Hats, through the Q posts, announced more or less kind of their approach and what they were going to do and all of that years ago, and then gradually took care of that and various things that was on their agenda, because they want to take back our planet, because our planet has been infiltrated and taken over by this ET influence, which involves going back to the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, written about again by the Sumerian tablets. Sitchin was popularized that information. Some people disagree with his interpretation, but there's no doubt that they were responsible for coming here, for being, they were on average, I think at the time, 9 foot tall, and genetically re-engineering the human genome, putting a frequency fence in our brains to keep us, so we wouldn't live beyond like 100 years. So you don't learn that much within 100 years. That's better, because the first thing they found is that we were learning too quickly and that we got sort of hip to them. And one of the other stories that goes along with that is that Enki was given in charge of Africa, and he was more lenient in his treatment of the humans. And he, that said that, he gave his seed to the women, but he, all I can say is that this is a genetic experimentation that they undergo. Reptilians, okay, well, you have to go back to the Pleiadians. The Anunnaki are actually Pleiadians who went rogue. They went to Nibiru. They were then invaded by the reptilians and Draco, and they were created into a hybrid race, a part reptilian, part humanoid. And so that's why you see them on the temples. Sometimes they look reptilian, sometimes they just look humanoid. But at any rate, they, Anu, their father, gave these two sons. Enki and Enlil is the story. Enlil got the Middle East. He created, he took charge of it. He made the humans act like administrators. They did what they're told. Whereas Enki had a different point of view, and he gave them more freedom. So there was sort of what we call, and that's relates to my book, you can see it right here behind me, called Rebel Gene. And it's said to be that there is a rebel gene that we have, and that was exploited and allowed to thrive with that certain group of humanity, of which I'm obviously a member of that, bloodline or whatever you want to call it. So this is, going back, over 2,000 years. I don't even know how many years. I'm terrible with numbers. So all I can say is that's kind of the story. And we have been, I mean, the pyramids were built not by slaves. That's a complete fallacy. They were built by ETs. Apparently, I'm not sure that the Anunnaki actually built the pyramids, but they may have had a lot to do with some of them. Some are better built than others, for that matter. And so it's just, if you just look at the evidence, you will eventually know that these stories are all true. It doesn't mean every story anyone can make up is true. It just means that there's documented evidence going back centuries about the Anunnaki and how they created kingships. So, there's a list of kings all through Egyptian history. There's the early kingdom, the late, middle, and the late. Okay. And then today. Okay. So those are carved onto temple walls, lists of all the kings and queens as it happens. And that was an Anunnaki construction. What they did was at the first, those kings and queens, I forget how you say her name, but anyway, one of them was definitely a woman. Anyway, they gave their DNA to them. So they were hybrids. They were hybrid Anunnaki human. And now it is said that all of us have Anunnaki genes in us. Okay. That this hybridization of humans actually, was extensive back in those days, and all the different bloodlines descended from that. And so what happens is kings, the idea of the king with the crown, crown is symbolic of the crown chakra and being fully opened. And you're supposed to believe, if you have a fully opened crown chakra, that you're an enlightened being. That was the philosophy, because humans, they knew the way humans are. And we read symbols. We don't even know we read them. Okay, but we interpret them, we read them. So you can subliminally program us, if you like, by giving us symbology, because we will believe it's true and follow it. So once they knew that, they put in place these kings and queens. In the beginning, like I said, they were hybrids. They were part Anunnaki, fully half Anunnaki and half human. Then they eventually just put the descendants of the Anunnaki human, mix. And so they were less related to the Anunnaki, but still had the genetics. So what we have in the blue bloods, as you call them, or the royalty, what we call royalty here on Earth, are people that are reptilian. So what you got was Anunnaki genes, but you got a major part of the reptilian genome, because Anunnaki were carrying that. So this is where, they go, oh, humans, they're so violent, and other ETs are just so shocked. That's just bullshit. The fact of the matter is that they actually, and this is, you can argue about how it happened, but the bottom line was, when they first seeded humans to this planet, and we weren't created by the Anunnaki, they just came and tried to take us over. And they're still trying to take us over. And in fact, the Three-Eye Atlas is an indication of that, their next step. Okay. And I believe that the Anunnaki underground in Israel called the ships in. That's my view. Okay. Now, I can also tell you how it's going to be gotten rid of, but just want to keep my place here. So what happens is the humans, the kings and queens, with this symbolism, convinced humans to, believe that remember how they always said they had divine rule? They were God-given, all that thing. And the Bible is full of God this, God that. And it's really God's plural most of the time. It's the Anunnaki. Anu is the God of the Bible. Okay. And I know some people will hate that, but it's a fact. That doesn't mean we don't have a real creator. Okay. I'm not saying there's not a God of everything. Okay. But a God of everything is not, first of all, let's get real, is not vindictive. Anytime you hear about a vindictive God, you're talking about an Anunnaki. And Anu wanted humans to worship him. It's clearly written in the documentation, in the Sumerian tablets, etc. That's what he wants. And so Enki and Enlil kind of followed in suit of that to a degree, but not to the degree that Anu did. Now, Marduk is the son of Enki, and there has been Andy Lloyd. He's a sort of scientist astronomer in England who lived very close to GCHQ, who I interviewed dozens of times. He had been writing a series of books about the return of Marduk. Interestingly, okay, and where he got that idea, I can't tell you, but you can put the two and two together. He then became afraid for his life and his family, so I don't think he ever finished the series. So it got I think he was doing 3 books. I don't know if he ever finished the 3rd. I've been in touch with him since then. I begged him to finish it and to send me the books because I want to make a movie about it. But so far, I think he's terrified. So this is the kind of thing that goes on.
Now, is it fair to say that? Oh, I was going to ask you. So, because I've heard some of this, whether it was from you or other, throughout the years, maybe even going back like 5 years, 4 years, but is it that they live very, very long? So even though it feels like a long time for us as humans, because our lifespan is maybe 80,
they do. They live like 1,000 years.
Okay, I even thought there might be like longer lives that they've had.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so for them, like 100 years.
Humans used to live longer.
Right. But for now, when we think of, wow, these agendas go on for so long and they think so far ahead, it's just that for them, that might be like 3 months, versus us, which is like a lifetime. Okay, because that's an important thing, because we can see these agendas that play out over long periods of time, and they're continued and continued. Yes. They don't die out. So someone's keeping them alive, right?
Right. And so reaching the conclusion that this ship is Anunnaki, and there's many indications they want us to know they're Anunnaki. They absolutely want us to know. And I'm sure they're in touch again with the secret space program, who know their agenda and know why they're here. They're probably here, it appears, to reestablish their sort of kingship over humanity, okay? Or to demonstrate the fact that they do exist, because most people don't realize that the Anunnaki, as Bob Dean, one of my famous witnesses, said, walk the halls of the Pentagon. What they have done now with themselves is actually genetic engineering of a body that's more our height. So they could just be, little old men with bald heads that you don't even think about, that are working in the Pentagon, so to speak. They're here. And I have witness testimony that they're also working in underground in Israel. And the reason Israel are the chosen people, they're chosen by the Anunnaki to be their, most closely genetically aligned with their genome, which means they've got more reptilian DNA, which means they are more, the reptilians are known for hierarchies, and they want power over other beings. They're in fact a marauding species that travels through solar systems and galaxies and looks for prey. They're a predator species, and this is the Draco as well. And so this is what these people have in their DNA, and so do each and every one of us. And so what I was getting back to when I was saying, when they used to try to seed planets, this is a planetary, thing that they do throughout the multiverses. So there are many, even scientists will tell you, there are billions of Earth-like planets out there. And what they do is they populate them with various species, and then they sort of nurture them like you would a garden or whatever. And that's where you get Adam, Eve in the garden, but there was no snake. It was genetic engineering. The snake is symbolic of genetically engineering reptilian DNA into the human species. And one reason that was allowed is, the story goes, according to Ashana Dean, is that the first seedings of humanity got wiped out by reptilians because they wouldn't defend themselves. So I guess their solution was to have the reptilians contribute their DNA to the humanity, and that was through the, Anunnaki, and therefore we became more warlike. And unfortunately, now it's gotten to a really bad extent that you have one part of humanity being prey to another.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you get human trafficking, which reptilians are famous for, and the eating and using of the loosh of children and young adults to stay, younger, longer, and this whole adrenochrome highway that's Hollywood's involved with, Wall Street, and you name it. So you can see the trajectory. There's a through line. Most people don't go to the extent I did to do, to put all the pieces together. But I've been studying this in great depth. And I have to say that I've been helped, okay, not only by the whistleblowers that I met with for 20 years, but by, I guess unseen ETs, basically, have been helping me. I mean, one time I was going to move somewhere in the area I actually live now. And I had a brief, sometimes I get visions when I'm wide awake even. And I saw there was a tall being walking through a house I was about to buy and checking it out, like making sure it was the right place for me. I know it sounds insane, but that's what I saw. And that I got that information from the brain, of the being. They let me see that glimpse of, what's going on behind the scenes. So I am helped. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I don't think it sounds insane, at least not to us and not to our audience. But
Okay.
yes, to the normie people out there, it sounds bizarre and crazy and nuts and certifiable because they haven't educated and opened their minds up to realize that we don't live in a bubble. There's a whole world out there of things that we haven't been taught.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of questions. Well, I was just going to say, actually, a lot of people think there's only pyramids in Egypt, don't they? But they are dotted all around the planet, aren't they? And that's really interesting if you look into that. But Dan's a couple of questions. Dan said on Facebook, what about the Nephilim? How do they tie into this? Are they sort of the Anunnaki? Are they something different? And
yes.
And
well, my understanding is basically in Nephilim are that Anunnaki. They're, as I say, they're a hybrid race. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they want to be seen as gods.
Okay. And I just wanted to say, what do you think? Because a lot of people say this human race, there's something special about us, and this movement towards some sort of ascension and stuff, and other races
you can imagine. No, this is a design. I mean, intelligent design. Okay, that we're a part of, and this. I'm sorry for the egotism of humans, but it's probably similar to the egotism of the Anunnaki, who were our teachers, you might say. So. Having this egotistical view that, we're special. You're supposed to believe you're special. That's what anyone who wants to take you over is going to convince you of. And that's what the Greys always tell to the people they abduct. Oh, you're so special. That's why we chose you. And then eventually, they basically genetically re-engineer you. And then they order you around. And then, there's so much I could say about that subject. So there are a lot of our leaders. There are a lot of our, people that are here that are in high level positions are under orders. Sometimes they know it and sometimes they don't, but they're still under orders. And, that can be all of us as well. In other words, you kind of, you come here with a mission. It may be a good mission or a bad mission, and then you carry it out to the best of your ability while you're here on Earth for the period of time you're here, right? It's like that. So all I can say about how special we are in ascendance, yes, we're ascending. All beings will ascend eventually. What does ascending even mean? You basically leave the corporal body and you become more aligned and closer to source, or you are source. So if you understand that, that's the nature of ascendance. That's merging with source. And they, it's given all kinds of descriptions and climbing a ladder. I am not what you call a spiritual materialist. A lot of people are. They think you get brownie points and you have a hierarchy and all this, get patted on the head for doing certain things, like getting on your knees and worshiping some stupid God. I mean, that's all bullshit. It's just all bullshit. Even praying, please, can I have a Mercedes or whatever it is you want, to gods, and doing magic to attract a god and sacrificing other humans to please the gods. This is all a reptilian construction. You have to understand. It's because it's in their culture. It's the way they are. You obey. There's no two ways about it. And I have seen, I saw a Draco, a flying Draco, which is the Shakar. One day when I was going into a meditation, I slipped into the interdimensional space around us, and I guess he wanted me to see him, a Draco flying by me. And there was totally a conscious being, and he knew I saw him and he saw me and all like that. He didn't want to attack me or anything. He just wanted me to know that he was real. And this is back when I was working in Hollywood and just meditating, on a Saturday or something. And at that point, there had been the first version of the V television series. Yeah. And I just thought that was stupid. I didn't think reptilians existed at that point. But once I had that vision in my meditation, I knew they existed, unequivocally from then on. And I've had other sightings of, reptilians and sort of seen some in my dreams, that kind of thing. I have had, had a little old man sit by my bed all night long. He was a small, bald-headed guy that matches the description of Alex Collier's, one of his characters that he talks about. And I said right before I came to, I said, and this is before I ever knew about Alex Collier, and I just said, wait, where are you from? Because I was determined. I want to know where this guy's from. Apparently had visited me before. And he said, I'm from Andromeda. So, and I was really, young then. I didn't, know much about this sort of thing. I over the years, I hadn't started Camelot or done anything like that, but at that time.
So this obviously genetic modification and the Anunnaki and stuff all ties in with this, what scientists call junk DNA and stuff, does it?
Except it's not junk at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's also bullshit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's vital. In fact, it's the more we can access it, that's ascension if you want to really get there.
Yeah. But it's almost like some of it is turned off.
Yes, dormant. The Anunnaki put in what's called a frequency fence to limit our access to part of our own DNA and but it's all becoming awakened now. So that's what's happening to the earth and to us, is that there are sort of energies coming from the galaxies. In fact, Sagittarius galaxy that we're moving into apparently has something to do with it. Also, the galactic center sending waves. I interviewed a scientist called Paul LaViolette who talks about this super wave that's coming towards us. So this is a pattern. This is we are being assisted. So we're not just waking up on our own accord. We're also being assisted. And you could even say that, whenever you hear about the solar flares of the sun and this and that, all the activity that's going on around us right now, that is awakening, by the way. Earth changes like volcanic eruptions, and there's going to be a lot more, and some lands are going to come out of the sea. We're going to have a huge future in terms of incredible change that will change our view of ourselves, life in general, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Kerry, not that anybody wants to put timelines on anything, but is that like in the foreseeable future, do you think?
Yes.
Or 100 years from now?
I have dreams of the future. So I have sort of a chronology that I've had dreams over the years. And I keep it in my head, like in a library, or a drawer or something. And I know what happens before what happens, that kind of thing, sort of. And it's not always super clear to me. I remember as much as I can. Sometimes I'll have forgotten something that I did see, and then I'll see it and realize that I dreamed it. It's that kind of thing. So I know fairly near future events. Yes. And I keep having these kinds of dreams. So periodically, one time I was in Africa because I used, back in the really early days of Camelot, my partner could take us on safari on our own. So it wasn't expensive or anything. And we would go to Africa because I love Africa. I love wild animals and especially, big cats. So we would go to Africa. And when you're in certain parts of the globe, you can be less under the grid than you are here, so to speak, or where I am in the United States. So when you're in Africa is one of the areas where the grid is a lot thinner. It's not so impactful over you. And so you can really get some great psychic information there. And I actually, saw future things, some of which are not pleasant, but I don't know yet if they're going to happen. Some, they haven't happened yet, but I did see, for example, Trump coming into office, and I did see him not winning. I didn't know that at the time what I was seeing was 2024, where he did win. I thought he was going to win 2020, and I was wrong about that. And he, because they stole it and all that. But what I had seen was after that, which is 2024, I saw him winning, and I saw an exodus of people, refugees, leaving our country. At the time that I had that dream vision, I didn't believe that, these people would leave the country. I didn't believe there would be an exodus. That wasn't even in the news. There was nobody talking about something like that. But the minute Trump came into running for the 2024 election, that he did win, he started talking about sending the refugees out, the immigrants, that whole thing. And that's become a major part of his platform. So my dream was accurate, but I didn't necessarily know the year it was happening. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's, everyone has dreams, I think, and dream visions and all of that. And it's really, can you interpret it properly? That's really the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
So December 19th is supposed to be, what you can tell, an important day for lack of, and
really probably a set of days. I'm sure it's not exact,
right.
I don't think it's exact. Now, I don't know if what's going to happen is going to happen then. I know that's when it's closest to Earth. It could just be close to Earth, and we may not see. Now, some, like I think even Avi Loeb thinks it might release a group of pods, like small spaceships or something. I don't know what he really thinks, but that's what he says. He says it's possible it could do something like that. But actually, I don't think Aziz saw that. But what he sees in the future of Three Eye Atlas is this attack, which is going to end it. So it's not, and I did see it being destroyed. Now, my version of that is, and I may be completely off base, is a little different than his. I do see it under attack, but I see it being attacked mainly through use of what's called a neutron star energy, which, according to Captain Mark Richards, we have access to what's called neutron star energy to power up our spaceships out in outer space. But you can also, ETs have been using that, and they turn it into a kind of a weapon. I sort of see it as like a cannonball or something, getting some of this energy out there from a neutron star, doing whatever you do with it, and then sending it somewhere like you would a tennis ball or cannonball or whatever. And I think that is possible because you see, we don't have, that is the most powerful weapon we have is neutron star energy. So I think it's possible if they want to get rid of this craft out because it's a threat and they can't shoot it down by conventional methods, obviously, and even nuclear won't work. This neutron star energy is very possibly how they're going to do it. Now it's accompanied by two, I think they're very weird, but they're sort of also craft, but they're more like portal tech. And these portals are sort of going along with it. One is called Lemon with 2 M's, and one is called Swan. That's not their super scientific name, but that's what they're called in the community. And so they appear to have portal-like constructions. What I think they are is escape hatches from this dimension, that they are there kind of trailing behind 3i Atlas so that 3i Atlas can disappear into one of those portals if it should need to defend itself and get out of this dimension. Now, no scientist has said this. This is all my concoction in my own head because of my interactions with Captain Mark Richards, because he told me about Dyson spheres and he's also told me about neutron star energy. And no one knows about this because no one talks about this because this, he's in prison. They think anything he says is discredited because he's, a prisoner and a convicted person of supposedly being part of a plot to kill. The guy that got killed, just a side note, happened to be a pedophile, and they found that out. But that's a whole nother, ball game. And one of the kids that killed him had been defiled by a pedophile, so he was vindictive towards that guy, and so on and so forth. Anyway, getting back to this, so neutron star energy. So I think it's very possible they're going to use the neutron star energy to push it either into one of those portals and out of our dimension. So it will, in essence, disappear.
Right.
It will not necessarily be destroyed. That's my theory. But that's not what Aziz saw. Aziz actually saw ships attacking it sort of splitting and I guess disintegrating or whatever you want to say from that point on. It's destroyed and attacked. Either way, it's going to be attacked. And it probably knows that. I mean, it's not listening to me necessarily right now, but it could be. They have incredible tech. So, they will know what the humans think. I'm very rare in the way I think anyway. So because of my training, you're going to call it that. So I know most people don't talk like this, but it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen like that. I had a dream vision, fell asleep actually in the middle of the day when I had been researching 3i Atlas and reading the news group and stuff. And I guess it got into my dream thing. And I saw this happening. All right. And I can't describe it too terribly well, but I'm in essence what I told you.
Yeah. I actually was curious about the portals. Now, don't think I'm crazy, but when you watch a lot of these movies, they're showing portals and they're kind of, and a lot of the movies are ridiculous.
Stargate, Stargate, the television show, that's a
right.
portal.
But that was more like, how do I say this? More of an intellectual show. I mean, even if you watch a kid's show like the Smurf movies, they're showing these creatures coming through portals, right? So the question I have is there any connection, in your opinion, between the portals and, say, certain parts of the world where we've had wars, like whether it be, the Israel area and what's going on over there, like in the Gaza, whether it had anything to do with, Vietnam, like, we're all in this community, we hear different things and then they kind of stick there, you don't remember where you heard them. So it's not like original idea that I'm having, but is there connections with that, trying to get control? Yes. Okay.
Totally. In fact, we are at war with aliens over the portals, the significant portals all over Earth. And this is also written about in the Oceana Dean Voyager books. Okay. In fact, there's a whole system of portals. And by the way, the Middle East has the most portals. the
Well,
largest
that's what we would interpret.
portals in that little area. Okay. So that's highly contentious. And in the mountains, I guess I think it's between Iraq, it might be Iraq and Iran. I'm not sure. But I have been told by several whistleblowers that our military is guarding the entrances to portals. You know, Crimea in Russia, it's heavily, coveted, and the Russians will never let go of it because it contains super portals. Okay. And this is documented. It also has like 9 pyramids for that matter. So go figure. Pyramids are stargates. They can be constructed as stargates, just like the Great Pyramid was always a portal into other dimensions. And beings can travel here from coming in there, and you can actually go from there. So it's said to be slightly broken. That's what they say. But even Dan Burish back in the day, who was dealing with this ET as a biologist, and you'd have to go back to the early days of my work to hear our interviews with Dan Burish and Marcia McDowell, who are members of MJ12. They had a whole story about how Dan was helping these future gray ETs who needed some part of our DNA, I believe, to be repaired and to be really, he called it repair, but I think he was probably giving them our DNA to repair their bodies, because their bodies, if you look at the grays, what they did is they had a pathway. And these are all several different gray ET races. They're not all the same. And some are good and some are bad. But they actually had a choice of whether to stay sort of emotionally grounded beings or to go more intellectual. When they went more intellectual, they lost, the fluids in their emotional, emotion is water. So they lost the water component, the emotional component, by and large. And so they are very matter of fact. They can do things like move objects and this and that. And there's a whole human hybridization of those south of the border. This is why we're being invaded by illegal aliens. They are actually programmed by the grays. They're gray human hybrids. That's the X-Men scenario that was in movies, telling you about that coming future that we are going to face. It's going to be like that. So, but they have lost, their beauty as a being, right? Their access to emotions is very limited. And see, you have 2 kinds of intelligence. You have emotional intelligence, and you have, just sort of more dry, as we would say, left brain intelligence. Mm-hmm. So, and women tend to have more right brain intelligence, by and large, not always. So it depends where your head is at and where your, balance is at, so to speak. But obviously beauty and having a lot of fluidity about yourself and makes you a better athlete. It makes you more empathetic. There's all these levels of what's going on. So just saying, that's just a side trip into gray human hybrids. But
yeah, and it makes sense because when you think of holistic, right? There's so much to make us. So I'm sorry, Stu. I'm sure you have questions. I write things down as she's talking, so then I don't want to lose them. So could that be the whole Ancestry.com and 23andMe? Why they want everyone to send in their DNA?
Sure. They're tracking our DNA. In fact, they're doing it also through the TSA scanners at airports. They're trying to determine how human you really are and how much ET influence you had. You can also, they can track a lot of people don't know that they have implants, but they do. Yeah. And I have a friend who went through a scanner, and I guess he could see the scanner. I'm not sure, because you can't always see the results of your scan, right? But they're in that case, and this is a few years ago, and it showed he had all these implants all over his back. It was ridiculous.
Wow, that's scary. Okay, so we were just talking about how the portals, right? So this is way off, just because I was watching a movie, so it just triggered something the other day. So like back in the 70s when all those soldiers came back from Vietnam, right? And the story that was told was that they were vilified and people didn't welcome them back. And, you know, that kind of makes sense, right? That could hurt your psyche. You feel like, but, you know, it sounds a little like there's a lot more going on than that as far as what went on over there, why we were there, and what possibly
Yeah.
they were doing.
So in Vietnam, the real reason we were in Vietnam was there was an invasion. There was a portal that opened up in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam area, a pretty large portal from what I understand. According to Mark Richards, I know this is going to sound bizarre. I've already talked about it, you know, and it's written about and it's in the books. So there were these spider beings, and they're like as the size of VWs.
Okay.
And so I actually went out and put an announcement out looking for Vietnam vets who had any trace memories of these spider beings or something like that to contact me. And I got 3 guys. One of them disappeared shortly after, but 2 of them stuck with me. And one in particular let me interview him. And I have the interview, you know, you can watch it. And he was at this, I'm not great with the names of forts, but he's somewhere like Georgia, a fort in Georgia. And he
Benning, that might be Benning in Georgia.
Maybe, but it'll be in the interview, so you'll see. But anyway, the point is that they did have trace memories, and they believed that their memories were wiped. And they had seen, get this, piles of bodies of these dead spider beings, I guess, where battles had taken place. They thought they were just part of a battle, but they didn't know what kind of battle, and they had their minds wiped and all that. But then they had these recurring visions or bleed throughs.
Right, that whole expression, flashbacks from Nam, right? They were,
yeah.
I mean,
so I'm just saying that,
yeah.
You know, I was amazed. I mean, I didn't even think I would find these people, but I was told about it by Captain Mark Richards. Now, this goes back to what's called Angkor Wat. So Angkor Wat is a place, I think it's in, I could get this wrong, but Cambodia. And it's a temple. It's a beautiful temple. You can look it up on the internet. And what happened there is it had a river running through it. And it supposedly, all the beings that lived there just disappeared overnight, supposedly. So what he said happened was, again, that portal opened, spider beings came out, and what they do is they actually stun their beings' minds. They mind control them before they kill them and eat them. I know this just sounds so horrible, and I hate spiders. I can't deal with it. But anyway, so this is what he tells me. I'm like,
this is one of the soldiers that had trace memories, you're saying?
No, I'm telling, this is Mark Richards.
Mark Richards.
This was a precursor, if you will, of the invasion that then happened during the years of Vietnam. And so those portals opened again, and that was happening. Now, supposedly, there are places on Earth where the portals open up and weird beings come through with nefarious objectives to mess with the humans, okay? And they're coming from another dimension. And so what happens is there's a place in, I mean, you may not want to even hear some of this stuff, but the Lake Country is a beautiful area of northern England, okay? And I've been there. Well, apparently there are these big caves in those mountains there. It's you know, it's sort of a remote-ish place. And according to not only my witnesses, but Miles Johnston will even talk about this, that supposedly there are spider beings living in those mountains, okay, that came through portals. There's other places, you know, and I hesitate to tell you where they are because, you know, it just can ruin your vacation to really think about this sort of, you know, so I don't want to, you know, make people.
So the question is, if there are still beings, let's say in this beautiful, you know, lake region, why do they stay, like, why do they keep to themselves if they have that kind of power? I mean, or
I
they
don't
don't?
know, back in the day, do you remember how England's always famous for dinosaurs, not dinosaurs, but dragons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, those aren't myths.
Right.
Dragons are, Draco. Okay. And Captain Mark Richards says they're also raptors. The raptors are what is referred to in history as the dragons. So, but there are also the Draco. So they might be like bigger dragons than the raptor dragons. It doesn't matter. But anyway, I'm just trying to show you how we have a mythology that has followed through to these, even this time, to where understanding a lot of the beings and the invasions that we have here this is like the earth is like honeycombed. There's also inner earth, and it's a different dimension. You have to go through a dimensional gate to get there. Okay. But it's here. So, and you can do it, and humans have. There's stories written about it. So, what can I tell you? This is how it is. Okay. So those beings occupy, a lot of times they don't go on surface earth. They'll stay in the tunnels, and you have to encounter them. You'd have to go down maybe even miles, and then you'll get a story. Like I read some story or a book about some guy who, was hiking around, and then he went deep into a part of, found a tunnel and followed it. And he actually stumbled into inner earth and an inner earth civilization, and they were friendly to him and all this kind of thing. And he came out and wrote a book about it. That's, he's not the only one.
Yeah.
And right now I can say this, I'm not supposed to say this, but the white, I got to know the White Hats all the way back in 2010 before they ever went public. So I just got to know some of their members. I knew their philosophy. I knew how they put themselves together and all of this sort of thing. So I knew a lot more about them than most people when they came forward as Q. So you understand. But they are in touch with a group from Inner Earth that is helping them.
Okay. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I think whether it's intuitively, because a lot of us that are awakened are also intuitive to an extent,
Sure.
We all have the visceral feeling sometimes that you hear something and it just makes sense. And so
Right.
everything you've talked about, hopefully our viewers too, just makes total sense. And I guess the question probably in everyone's mind is sort of, how does this story end for humanity, for us?
Well, again, there's the Galactic Federation, but they're infiltrated. So there's a lot of so-called bad or negative. Okay, so let me be clear about this. A deer will tell you that lions are bad. Okay, we don't think lions are bad, but they do use deer as prey.
Yes.
So beings that prey upon us, we call negative. Okay, and when their agenda is aligned with us, we call them positive. But humans are rather naive in that sense, because every race of beings has their own agenda. If we match it, then we match it and we could be friends. If we don't, then we'll be enemies. So
Right.
if they want to kill and eat us, obviously, we're going to see them as enemies. So as above, so below. And don't get me started about the people that think that all ETs are good. That is just insanity. But anyway, so what happens is we are interacting with all these other dimensions, beings. They are evolving, we are evolving, re-evolving is what it really is. We come from source and we return to source. It's not really rocket science.
Right.
So, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I'm not sure if
Well,
I
the
lost
question, let me rephrase it. We are, in this great awakening. We are in this war of good and evil, so to speak, right? These are the terms that have been
Oh,
used.
you wanted to know where is it all going to end? Well, it's not going to end. Okay. So if you study Nietzsche, for example, Nietzsche has this idea of constant return.
Yeah.
You may not return. Okay. So the Native Americans around the world will always use the spiral as one of the most basic elements of symbology, right?
Wow.
Well, the nature of the spiral is that every time you go around, you don't just go in a circle. You actually go around and you go up a level. And what happens is every time you go up a level, you can think of it as every time you incarnate, even though maybe sometimes you don't go up and you kind of go down. But in essence, you have the choice of going up a level and seeing your life or lives from a different viewpoint. And that's your opportunity. Okay. So that's what's happening. It's like, even the Milky Way galaxy is a spiral. I mean, there's a symbology out in everywhere around us is educating us as to the truths. These are truths. Okay. So it's built into the Fibonacci spiral and, all the, what do they call platonic solids and, all the different structures. And there's, male and female and yin and yang and understanding light and dark. And that's the nature of this experience, okay, is learning to discern all these different things and all aspects of them and choosing. You do have a degree of choice. In some ways, it's built into your, let's say, genetic makeup, how you incarnate and with what bloodline and all the different things. You're going to have influences on your choices, let's say. So you don't just come in clean and can just make any choice you want. Right. It's not like that simple. So, and this is where you'll get a being that, let's say they're born. Okay, well, I'll use an example that'll drive people crazy, but 107 is JFK Jr. He's had a very interesting life if you actually study it from that point of view. And he has had to choose his path. And the same with Trump, by the way. So they became best friends for a reason. Mm-hmm. They were both brought up at the feet of the cabal, the Illuminati. Okay. But they both had an inclination and even a destiny, one might say, towards good. Yeah. Okay. To serve humanity, not to eat them, but to serve them and so on and so forth. And so that's their destiny. Kennedy, his father, in JFK Jr.'s case, set an example that even today he's having a hard time, matching, if you will. But he had a lot of flaws, JFK, the real JFK. And, womanizing, all that different things. So JFK Jr. is not like that. He's not going to womanize and do all that, right? So it's just understanding the psychology of the person, where they get their genetics, where their tendencies are, and then the choices they make within that. And that's what determines who you are as a soul and where you're headed.
So, I mean, we obviously there's a lot of talk about ascension and becoming better and stuff, but we also hear we're in this sort of reincarnation trap put upon us by this sort of reptilian agenda.
Exactly. But you have to understand, it's not just their agenda, if you will. Yeah. There is a structure to this sort of universe.
Yeah.
And you can actually watch it. I mean, even if you watch a child as they grow, right? And the choices they make and things they, do wrong, and then they think about it and they correct their behavior and, they learn. That's what we call learning, right? Yeah. And so humans are learning. We are always learning. And in the raw material, they call it teach, learn. So you're teaching, as you learn, you teach, right? So you're playing both sides of that spectrum. Now, I'm not a big fan of the raw material because it has a cap on it, a limitation that I don't appreciate. And they dissuade you from learning about the ET side of things in the raw material. And that's where Ashiana Dean in her book does away with all that bullshit, okay? And just decides to tell you the fucking truth. So, they don't tell you everything. Nobody tells you everything. But if you do enough study, enough, of your own downloads and everything, you can put it together. It's not actually, it sounds complex, but in the end, it makes a lot of sense. So it is what it is. I mean, we are beings having a material experience out of
Yeah.
choice. Okay. In my view. Okay. Now everyone has different philosophies, blah, blah, blah. That's how I see it. So you're not just going to ascend because you decide you want to ascend. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
It's not like that. Okay. Because it's made up of who you are, your frequency, and how you can, you can do certain things to enhance yourself in the more mechanistic or materialistic sense of that. You can take health programs and this kind of injection and that kind of injection. And you can also become a negative being and do the whole, the adrenochrome highway. That's not going to make you an enlightened being.
Right.
It's
Well,
a path.
the whole part of awakening is that, once you've awakened, you just want to learn and better yourself and be.
Well, as I say, enlightenment is a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
So that's the fact. I mean, you can imagine even if, you want to call God, source, creator, whatever, is also still learning, still enhancing, still enlarging themselves, still, and we are part of it. We are part of its exploration, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
I have to say that I think this has gotten really long. So I think I need to go pretty soon.
Oh, this has been so amazing. And thank you for spending the time. We could just keep going with you because if this one thing leads to the next, so maybe you'll come on again and we'll see where we are,
Sure.
With this whole everything that's going on. But Stu, I don't know. I mean, this is
No, completely fascinating. People posting in the chat, that's fascinating stuff. I could listen to you for hours and things. And this is our first chat together, and I thank you very much for coming on. It's been enlightening. And if you want to come on again sometime, I've got more questions there, but then I have to make another day. Yeah. Okay. Kerry, thank you very much for coming on. I've got a little Trump video to put on the end, so I shall just play out with that. But yeah, where we go, one we go all, everyone. We'll win this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Standing by the guy that's been in the arena for 10 fucking years for MAGA, for America. Standing by the man that took a bullet. Standing by the man that was impeached twice. Standing by the dude that was fucking facing 3 different court cases and over 1,000 years in prison. I'm fucking standing with the guy that had his house raided illegally. I'm standing with the man that fucking went back out in front of America just days after being shot. And I don't fucking feel bad about it. I don't need to explain it. I don't need to rationalize it. He's earned my loyalty and respect as a man and as a constituent. And I don't need to fucking argue with you. This is why I don't argue on social media. You guys just see me nuke people. You say stupid shit, gone. I don't need to push back and validate myself. It's self-evident. Donald Trump is a self-evident defense. Why do you support Trump? Because I've been paying attention for a decade. Fuck you, that's why. That's all the explanation you need. You don't have to get into the minutia and the fucking policy discussions with these cunts. Fuck these people. They haven't sacrificed a motherfucking thing. They've all made money and and made wealth off of his courage. Do you understand? So fuck them. Fuck anybody that asks you why you support Trump or anybody that tries to get you to leave and abandon him now. They don't deserve even 1 fucking ounce of your energy. It's Trump. It's MAGA. That's the fucking future of the country. Full stop. The end. Nothing else needs to be said.